United Neighbors. Oh, thank you, Mark, for setting up the recording. So just to start again, this is the Central Park United Neighbors final community meeting of 2023. And so we can start. Next slide, Mark. It's just also to introduce myself, since we have some newcomers on this meeting. I'm Liz Stallnicker. I'm the board president for Central Park United Neighbors. A little bit about our organization. So Central Park United Neighbors, or CPUN, is the registered neighborhood organization, and the acronym for that is the RNO, for the Central Park community. We provide a working forum for the residents of Central Park to participate in creating, developing, and fostering a vibrant urban community dedicated to social equity, environmental responsibility, and economic opportunity. At these monthly meetings, we facilitate the discussion of key issues with our neighbors, and engage in proactive problem prevention and amicable problem solving. CPUN is committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment for all members of our community. Next slide. A little more about us. Our mission is the betterment of the city of Denver by providing a forum for the residents living in Central Park to discuss and resolve issues, a network of communication, and a means of acting on matters of importance to the community as a whole. We're here to promote public service, civic discourse, and collective efficacy. We're an all-volunteer board of Central Park residents. On the second bullet point, we have civic discourse. I just want to unpack that a little bit, just for folks, since there will be Q&A. What we mean by civil, so comments and questions should be germane and concise. Please refrain from personal attacks and profanity. Participants who do not conduct themselves accordingly or who seek to disrupt or impede the orderly process of the meeting or these discussions will be muted and or removed from the Zoom meeting at the discretion of the meeting hosts. And so if folks have questions about that, they can ask that to me separately in the chat, but just wanted to kind of cover that ground. Next slide. So our agenda tonight is pretty packed. So we're doing the agenda overview. We'll start with CPUN committee updates and announcements. We'll also have a quick little overview of some of our accomplishments over the past year, since this is our last meeting of the year. At 6:45, I'll turn this over to our community partners for their updates. And then at 7 o'clock, we have our first guest speaker is Layla Regan Porter from Bluff Lake Nature Center. There is time in our monthly meetings for community comment. I did receive an email from one person who wanted to provide a comment. Feel free to raise your hand, and we'll get to the folks in the amount of time that we have. There will be a 5-minute break at 7:25, just so folks can kind of, stretch and move around before we move into the second part of the meeting. At 7:30 p.m., we have our second guest speaker will be Councilwoman Chantel Lewis, who's our district council member for District 8. She'll be providing updates on her work since taking office in July, and we'll also have a Q&A session for that. And then we will close that portion of the meeting. At 8:15, we have some brief CPUN board items. Everyone's welcome to stay for that, but that will close out our meeting, are some items that we need to discuss as the Central Park United Neighbors board. Next slide. Okay, so let's do committee updates. Generally, we go in alphabetical order, but I know that our education committee has very substantive updates about a current project and just kind of fundraising effort that they have initiated. So I put them last because I think that our education folks will have the most to say during this portion. If Mandel Rousseau or Jamie Hodgkins is on, if you can unmute yourselves and give us an update on the DEI committee, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee.
Sure. I'm going to stay off camera, but I'll go ahead and give you an update. I wanted to share with everybody that we had a very successful event that we hosted on November 4th and that was the Art of the Powwow. And we had Rose Red Oak. She presented, and there was a number of other people that presented as well. Native American dance, and we had some music. We had food from Takobe restaurant. We even had Stella and June serving up the food for us. We might have had some issues with some child labor laws come up there, but yeah, we really had a good time and learned a lot. It was a very successful event. I want to take time to make sure I thank Brian Weber from the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities, Central Park Business Association, Brookfield, and the MCA as well. I think that's everybody. Those were the people who showed up and they donated to help support the event. Also, I want to definitely give a shout out to um, Jamie Hodgkins for she basically had an idea to put this event on and did a lot of the heavy lifting for this event. Um, uh, and so yeah, it was definitely a success, and we look forward to doing some more events in the community that are educational and entertaining. So, yeah, big success for this one.
Yeah. Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge you, Mandel, that since you also did a lot of the heavy lifting, including, well, because we were originally, the food was supposed to be sponsored by the Climate Action and Sustainability and Resilience Office. They had to pull out for technical reasons. And so Jamie was able to get the majority of it donated by CU Denver. But then also Mandel covered the remaining part of the cost, and I will follow up with the board on just so part of that is a donation from Mandel, but also to see if part of that could be reimbursed. So we can talk about that during the board hour. Jamie, did you want to offer any comments? I noticed you went on camera.
Oh no, I just was able to join, but I am just really grateful we were able to put that event on, and it was fabulous. There was really well attended. It was so educational, and it was just, I think, really wonderful. So I really, really hope that we can do more like that in the future.
And Jamie's middle name is Persistence.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this originally was fall of 2020. You started talking about it. That was the kind of germ of the idea. So thank you. We'll move on since we've got a full agenda. We'll move on to our Safe Streets Committee.
Right. Amy, are you on?
Yeah, I'm on.
Amy is the co-chair for Safe Streets Committee, and I am as well.
Hello. I'll give an update, and Carol, please add anything if I miss it. We had our bi-monthly meeting today, actually, and it was great. We talked about bike buses, so kids biking together to school, and we'll post the video of that on the CPUN YouTube channel. And then we're just kind of chugging along, trying to have our regular meetings and keeping neighbors engaged and informed.
And the only other thing that I would add is that Sarah McGregor, who is not on the board, but she is a very active member of Safe Streets, recently contacted Councilwoman Lewis and in asking about another study for Emporia. It's kind of a long, an issue that's been going on for quite a long time in terms of egregious driving. And so with the switch in government officials, and she got a hold of the office, and within, she said, a couple of hours, they had responded to her and given her next steps in order to pursue what she'd like to pursue with the Emporia Street issues. So we're grateful for that.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Amy and Carol. How about our Sustainability Committee?
So this is Mark. I'll respond on this one. I was waiting to see if Brad was on because he took the lead on putting together an event about home electrification for those who are interested in replacing their furnace or HVAC systems and want to take advantage of the city's tax credits and rebates. I'm sorry, the federal and state tax credits, I believe there are, and local rebates for putting in a heat pump. We recorded that and put that on our YouTube channel, so definitely check that out if you're interested in saving some money and reducing your energy bills and carbon footprint there.
Great, thank you so much. And that brings us to the Education Committee. And I think is Trisha Houston, Amanda Alshouse, and Carol are the folks who have been working kind of pretty intensely on that in the past few days.
Trisha, are you on?
I am, yeah.
Why don't you just do a brief overview of this, because you're the one who initiated the meeting that we all attended last week.
Sure. Excuse my voice. I have a terrible cold, so I'm just trying to.
Are you okay? Do you want me to do it? Or are you okay?
No, I'm fine. But
okay, good.
If I lose my voice, I'll have you take over. So last week there's been a call to Ashley Elementary, which is just to the south of Central Park. It's right off Syracuse and Montview, and it's a Title I school. And there was a call to come and help them because they have recently had an influx of a lot of the refugee children. And some, we're not really sure, but somewhere somebody at the city or some nonprofits or whatnot has been directing them to go to that school. Mostly, we believe it's because they're a bilingual school. And so they have had a recent influx of 188 new students in the last 2 months, which is a lot. And so they don't have the funding for that. So typically around this time of year, they do a drive to try to do adopt a family. But because of their numbers right now, that's not possible. So we went and had a meeting with them to try to figure out what their needs are. There's been quite a few people in the community that have been trying to reach out to them to see what we could do. And ultimately, we just didn't have a lot of time. And so with school break coming up, we decided just to do a GoFundMe and try to see if we could collect as much money as possible to give everybody at their school a gift card for King Soopers so that they would have food during the break. It's been quite successful. We launched it like 48 hours ago, and I set a goal of 9,000, and we're up to 7,125 as of right now. So we've had quite the success, so that's pretty exciting. They're very excited about it. They're totally overwhelmed at this point, and Carol can talk to some of the other things that they need. They actually really need Spanish-speaking volunteers because they just don't have the staff to try to navigate all of this. And so she's trying to help find some people that can consistently go in there. But so far, I think we'll probably hit our goal, come super close, which will help them out tremendously.
Thank you for initiating that, Trisha, and just sticking with it. It's I've learned from you about the steps in the protocol that needed to be done. So I had checked it at 6 o'clock, and it was almost 7,000. So we're over 7,000, and I know that another 1,000 is coming in this week. So I know that we're going to reach that goal, and it's going to go past that goal, which is going to be great. And when we went to the meeting, we were talking about short-term goals and long-term goals. And so, as Trisha said, they really would like some Spanish speakers, but they need adults there for various reasons. And if Brian Weber is on the call, this meeting, he also, with the foundation, they've pledged $1,000, and Brian has been over there volunteering. So, Brian, are you with us?
Yeah, I am, Carol. Hi. Yeah, I've been over there this week helping with recess and lunch duty, which is one of the areas they could use volunteers for. from about 11 in the morning till 1:30 in the afternoon. The inundation of, the kids are taking in, a lot of them haven't been in school for months, if not longer. And a lot of them are way behind as far as grade level. There are fifth graders who are learning how to write their names. They've had a bilingual, a Spanish teacher leave. It isn't what they've signed up for, is what basically what they've said. They've had a couple paras leave. So they, as Tricia said, they could really use Spanish speakers to assist. An EL teacher she's teaching Spanish kids now, and the Department of Justice is actually visiting the school this week to see how they're complying with consent decree that the district is under about teaching bilingual kids. And I don't know what'll come of that, but they could use all the help they can get in as far as Spanish speaking support. And they also could use help in classrooms, just people who are willing to do one-on-one work, tutoring type work, who can actually can function on their own and don't need a lot of direction. Some of the classes are anywhere from 30 to 35, which is just incredibly difficult. So the strain on the staff is really showing. But they're hanging, and having additional people in the building is a real lift for them, if only for an hour or two. It really means a lot, as does this fundraising campaign. So I would just, if anyone is able to spend some time there, I'd really recommend it. The office manager named Joyce Archuleta, and she's taking all of this information. They're registering kids. When I was there today, there were a half a dozen families in the hall registering, and it's happening that way every day. They're now up to 388 students. They were supposed to have 176. So, and they have an interim principal who this is her first leadership position, Janet Estrada, but she's really doing well. But so it is a really stressful year for these folks.
One final thing that I just noticed with the chat, it says, is there a recommended contact to reach out if we have resources that can help? So Brian, who would that be at the school?
The office manager name is Joyce Archuleta, normal spellings. That is her email address, Joyce_Archuleta at DPS K-12. She's and she would welcome any kind of help that anybody can supply.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
Great, thank you so much. Well, if somebody could just kind of put that email address in the chat. Oh, well, Mandel's already done it. Thank you, Mandel. And
Liz, there's a question too from Doris.
Hi, yep, Doris, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Doris Dempsey, and I'm actually a retired teacher living here in Central Park. But I was wondering if DPS, if anybody has found out if DPS is going to come in and reassign some of those students for fairness to that school, or how can we help with that?
I'm not aware of anything. I spoke with Janet today, and part of the reason they've received so many kids is they were under enrolled to begin with, so they had the physical space for it, and they also had the bilingual capacity. So that was part of the reason that they've received so many kids. I don't know, other than that, if there's any effort that might be done to try to shift kids to other schools. I'm not aware, Doris.
Okay, and is there anything, would we as a community want to do anything? I would surmise that if it were Isabella Bird or Bill Roberts, that we would be speaking to someone at DPS.
Yeah, I was wondering for Carol and Tricia and Amanda, have you reached out to any of the DPS board, like I think Michelle Quattlebaum, Scott Esserman, John Youngquist?
We haven't, not yet. We did speak to them when we were in our meeting about if they've contacted, their area superintendent. And she said that they had at the time, but a lot of the kids that are coming in are special ed or need to be identified as special ed so they can get the extra services. and they're having a hard time with getting that identification expedited, because it normally takes a kind of a while to get that to happen. And so they're struggling with that because a lot of these kids, like, they have a lot of nonverbal kids right now. So they're having to do a lot of, hand holding, and they're also not able to help them because they're not actually designated yet. So she said they're working on that. The other thing is that with them being refugees, no one knows if they're actually going to stay in this area. So they're not sure if they'll end up getting moved somewhere, because a lot of them could be just here temporarily for the 2 weeks or 30 days or whatever the city is giving them, and then they may move on to another place. So they don't actually have any of that info. People are literally just sort of showing up at their door, so they don't really have any of this info.
Yeah,
They're kind of basically leading blind, which is really tough for them.
yeah.
If I could just jump in. Oh,
go ahead.
I apologize. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Who is this?
This is Doris again.
Oh, Doris
If I
again.
could just jump in and say that also jeopardizes the education of the students who are already there. And because when you are taking away all of the attention away from them and putting it on other children, and of course they're deserving to have attention, but this is like more than 188 students. It's like double when the students are as needy as they are academically. So I was just wondering if we would want to do something. Perhaps I will give a call.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Doris, I think that a lot of us would like to connect with you. I also just want to be mindful of where we're at on the agenda.
Yeah.
So I think that if folks can share their contact information with each other in the chat, particularly Doris, also just so that we can follow up with you. But we'll have a community update email going out, I believe, next Monday. And so we'll include some of the information and anything else that we can learn in the meantime in that community update email. But I really appreciate all of the work that's happening around this and everybody's interest. Okay. Next slide. I think we do have some community partner updates. Oh, sorry. I'll just do this really quickly. I forgot about this slide. This is just, it's the end of the year. So we just wanted to kind of highlight especially since this is a meeting where we do have folks attending who have not attended our monthly meetings before. I just wanted to highlight some of the work that we've done in CPUN over the past year. And if folks are interested in what we've done and want to get involved, just please reach out to us. We started the year by hosting 4 candidate forums, 1 mayoral, 2 city council for the first election and then the runoff election. And then in the fall, we had the Denver Public Schools at-large candidate forum. And then in partnership with the Central Park Business Association, we co-hosted the Central Park Classic Mini Golf Tournament for fundraising in May, and then also distributed 250 welcome bags to our new neighbors over the course of the year. Our Safe Streets Committee held the community bike ride in August. In October, the Sustainability Committee had the Harvest Fest where folks brought their produce and we donated it to different food banks, both the produce and other shelf-stable items. And that was hundreds of pounds of food went to folks who serve those in need. And also in October, we completed the annual CPUN community survey, and that is a very heavy lift for Mark Meringer. So thank you for that. And we will be providing the results of that survey at the beginning of 2024. And then as Mandel and Jamie mentioned, in November, the DEI committee hosted a successful Art of the Powwow celebration for Native American Heritage Month. Next slide, Mark. Okay. So now our community partner updates. We'll start, since we're going to have the District 8 update, we'll start with the partners at Denver Police. Do we have Officer Farrens on?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. Can everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm using
Yes.
a different computer. Okay, thank you. Um, I apologize. Lieutenant Hines is actually attending the mayor's meeting tonight, or was attending that, so I am here. Um, Only update I have thus far is our December commanders meeting is canceled because it's so close to the holiday. So we will resume in January on the 18th. At that point, we will resume both in person and virtual. So we'll have both options for everybody. And I just wanted to say thank you for everybody who was able to come out and celebrate us moving into our new station last um, on the 1st. That was really amazing. So many of you got to see our new station in our new community room. So we're really excited to share that all with you all moving forward for many of our meetings. But that is all I have right now. Thank you all.
Great, thank you. We did have a question in the chat
Sure.
about, I believe there was a shooting in the North End section of Central Park, I believe the week of Thanksgiving or last week. And I was just wondering if you could give the community an update on that situation.
Sure. So there was a shots fired into an unoccupied structure. I believe it was the 23rd of November. I had a chance to speak with Detective Harvey, who is overseeing that case right now. So, from what it sounds like after talking with the detective on the case, is he does believe the house was specifically targeted, just because nobody else's house was shot at. He did obtain some video footage from that incident, and all he was able to see was a dark colored SUV. I believe he said it was like a Kia or Hyundai. I don't recall exactly what vehicle he said it was, and about 3 to 4 um, younger males or juveniles. You couldn't see much. I believe he did collect some shell casings from that, so that gets turned into NIBINs, which is basically just a database for shell casings. Since each shell casing is like a DNA, it helps us track those. If they went to another area and shot off that same gun, we can just link all those spent shell casings to um, all these different incidents. So it's really unique system that we have. As of right now, we don't have any leads. Speaking to the homeowners and renters, it doesn't seem like there was any reason for any type of retaliation. Actually, speaking to Detective Harvey, he believes the address was mistargeted. So it whoever targeted that address had the wrong address. Essentially, is what he believes at this time. So that is all we have thus far. Moving forward, if we get anything else, we're happy to share it with anybody who reaches out.
Great, thank you. We have 2 more questions, just one follow-up on that case. Just that some neighbors received emergency phone alerts on the shooting and others didn't. So I guess any ideas on that? I guess the question is why did some folks get alerts on it and some did not in that area?
Right. So we've actually discussed this in the last several commanders meetings. You could actually sign up for those alerts through the Denver Gov website. It's called Reverse 911. So if you go to the Denver Gov website and look in the search bar for Reverse 911 signups, you can put in your information and you will receive those updates. But just keep in mind, you won't receive updates on everything. For example, if we're out in your neighborhood and we are trying to arrest a fugitive with felony warrants and all of that stuff, we're not going to send everybody that alert, only because who's going to get that alert? That same person we're trying to get. So there are certain circumstances where you won't get those alerts. But yes, go to the Denver Gov website, look up 911 reverse notifications and sign up for those.
Got it. Thank you. And then just, I know that this is something that is, if you have any update on the fires that were started at Westerly Creek at Beeler and MLK.
So all fire investigations are going to be handled by our fire investigator, arson investigators. So
Okay.
the fire investigator who was overseeing that case, I believe that person was cited for that. And the last I had heard is they were trying to work on an area restriction for that individual. So that will be something that you'll have to follow up with the fire investigator on the progress of that.
Okay, could you share just the name or contact information for the fire investigator?
Yes, I know I sent it to some residents who asked. I think it was, give me 1 second. I know the last name was Jordan.
Feel free to just share that in the chat when you have it.
Perfect. Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then we have the Master Community Association. Is Diane Dieter on this call, or Jack?
I am.
Okay, hi Diane.
It's Diane. Hi, how are you?
Good,
So
thanks.
we don't have a lot going on right this minute, except next Wednesday, we do have our annual meeting. Our annual members meeting starts at 6:30 at the Cube, 8371 Northfield Boulevard. And we will be finalizing our delegate elections and then going and presenting the budget that's been approved by the delegates and the board to the community. So that meeting again starts at 6:30 next Wednesday, the 13th. So we hope to see everyone there, and we'll answer any questions you have about what's going on that the MCA is responsible for in the community. Oh, and another update is that Puddle Jumper Pool, we finally did get the permit the end of October, and construction has begun, and they are moving forward with all the work that needs to be done to get that pool and the facility up and running full force by next May. So that's an update on that one.
Got it. Thank you. Just one quick question. Is the
Yes.
Annual meeting, is that available online or is it in person only?
It will be online, and that to get the information and the link to that, go to our website at mca80238.com, and you can get connected to the link for online. It's not a Zoom, I don't think. I think it's a webinar.
Okay, got it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll move on to Sam Gary Library.
Good evening, everyone. So let's see, we have a few things to talk about. The 2I measure that passed last November, it made possible for 11 additional library locations to extend their hours and to start operating 7 days a week and some evenings. Our neighbor Park Hill Library is among these branches, and Cherry Creek Branch also reopened to the public with new extended hours. There's some information about that in the chat. Our story time will be on break from Monday, December 18th through Monday, January 1st, and we will return on Tuesday, January 2nd with preschool story time. That's perfect for 3 to 5 year olds. We do have some programs coming up in December. There is going to be a STEM play date billed at your library, which will actually be happening in January. The reason I'm talking about it because we may miss that on the next meeting. It might already pass. So I just want to make sure folks know it's for kids 2 to 8 year olds and their caregivers. It's been very popular. It's lots of fun. We'll have 2 Active Minds, the educational programs for adults of all ages in December, one on social media, one on Van Gogh. There's going to be a youth gaming night tomorrow. It's for teens and tweens, and it happens at 5:30 p.m. We will have the last help session and Q&A on the new residential licensing requirements for this year, and that's happening on December 12th at 1 p.m. in our community room. There's going to be a couple of holiday programs, the All Seasons Multi-Generational Choir Song Share program. It's a collaboration between DPL and Swallow Hill Music. That is going to take place on December 18th, 5 p.m. And also our Idea Lab will hold a Decorate and Ornament drop-in program on December 23rd. That will be from 10 to 11:30 a.m. Also, the Winter Reading Program will run January and February. So I encourage you all take on this adult reading challenge. It's wonderful. You can explore the library services, find your next favorite book. You can connect with other readers around Denver. So you only have to pick up an activity brochure at any Denver library location between January 2nd, February 29th. You can complete any 5 activities and you'll trade it in for a prize. And we will have a couple of winter reading programs at Sam Gary, so you can check the calendar for those. And as far as closures, we will be closing early on Christmas Eve, December 24th at 4 o'clock. We'll stay closed all day on December 25th and also on January 1st. Folks have any questions?
Great, thank you so much.
For having
Okay, do we have anyone from Northeast Transportation Connections? All right, Friends of Front Range Wildlife Refuges? Okay, I did get a message from Matt Blackburn, wanted to just make a quick announcement about Central Park Artists.
Hello, thanks, Liz. Hello, everyone. This Saturday, the Central Park Artists Group will be hosting an event at the Cube between 2 and 6 p.m. It's called Deck the Halls Holiday Art Show. You can meet local artists, win free art, discover unique holiday gifts, and create your own ornament. So that's this Saturday at the Cube, 2 to 6 p.m.
Great, thank you. And if you can share the, any information in the chat too for folks to grab.
Will do.
That'd be great. Okay, next slide. Okay, our guest is Layla Regan Porter from Bluff Lake Nature Center. I will let you take it away.
Thank you. Okay, if it's all right, I will share my screen if that's doable. Okay, just it says disabled right now. I'll just wait.
Oh,
yeah.
I think Mark, can you make her a co-host?
Done.
Thank you.
Yay, thank you. All right. Okay. All right. Hopefully everyone can see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, thank you for having me. If you do not know about Bluff Lake Nature Center, we are your neighborhood wildlife refuge and outdoor classroom. I'm here to talk about our campus improvements project. So if you don't know where we are located, this gives you a little bit of an idea. We are right on Sand Creek there, so right next to Central Park. And our mission is to educate individuals to be engaged, resilient, and curious, conserve a natural area in the city, further equity in outdoor access, and nurture the health of well-being of communities and ecosystems. Our vision is a place where people and nature can coexist and thrive, because we believe those two things can be together without having to battle each other. So you can see by this map some of the opportunity that we've had for impact as a nature center. We have a pretty high burden of pollution and climate here, which is pretty extensive to have like in an area like ours. And then of course, to be able to have a green space is really vital to be able to combat some of that. Even if, we're 123 acres of green space, and that can make a pretty big difference with that kind of impact. So that was just a little bit of background about the elements that we have against us as a green space. But as an organization, we have grown immensely in the past 5 years. You can see some of the numbers here. The team members that we've had has doubled. Our visitorship has over doubled. Our budget also has gone up. And with that, our donors have gone up. I think a lot of that speaks to our community support that we get from our neighbors that help us do the work that we do. Some of that support goes to ensuring that we can do free field trips for all kids in Title I schools, that we can support our site and make sure that we're protecting the nature that we have, as well as maintaining trails for our visitors to use. So that support really shows how we can support that huge budget that we have now, which is again going to be higher in 2024. We've had a lot of birders have shown that we have had more bird species documented as well. I know we have a lot of avid birders in Central Park. So that's been really wonderful to see with the improvements on the site that more birds have been spotted as well. And a lot of you probably know about our summer camp, which went from just having 228 summer campers to over 400 and a huge wait list of 622. But we are limited with some of these because of the way that the site is right now. So you can see our existing conditions that we have right now. We have no utilities. We don't have an on-site staff presence. There's no indoor space. Some folks will see our shed and think that's our offices, but it's actually just storage. We don't have a great parking lot. It's very close to our programming. You can see there it sweeps right around where a lot of the kids are coming in and out for programming. It's not ADA compliant. We've had a lot of issues that we found with regarding accessibility. We are really lacking in storage, and there's just like not enough parking in general. So we have got together a really excellent team that has helped us envision what we need to do for the future of Bluff Lake. And that includes Shape, our architects, Superbloom, our landscape architects, Howell, our construction and general contractor, and then our wonderful owners rep Cummings, who they are really guiding us through this process and making sure that our needs continue to be met. And some of these folks may be familiar to y'all. A good amount of the people on our capital campaign committee are living in Central Park. Tanya, Jared, Lisa, Luke, Peter, and Sean, who also owns Glissade, are wonderful members of our community that have either been on our board or have been a big part of Bluff Lake and have supported this amazing capital campaign to get us to our campus improvements project. So we have been doing an enormous amount of community engagement. We have done feasibility studies and preparation throughout 2022. The beginning of this year, as hopefully some of y'all saw, we've been doing a lot of surveying. I hope that a lot of you had the opportunity to answer some of those surveys. We sent out a lot digitally and also sent out, had a lot on site as well for people to share their thoughts with us. We went to a lot of community events as well. And then throughout the spring and summer, we started to showcase some of our ideas and designs and get more feedback. And then in the fall, we went public with this campaign to really engage the community and ask them for the support in order to get this a reality. So this is a pretty extensive list, and I don't even think it covers everyone. It's just the amount of people we could fit on this slide. And it shows just how many people we've been talking to, how many people we've been asking, what are things that you need for programming if you're someone like Rise Colorado? What are things that you advise that we look for if we're doing a capital campaign project? Like Gates Foundation was able to give us a lot of feedback on that. And Birdability did a lot of site visits and told us about what we need to do to improve to make our site more accessible. So this is the survey we have. I really hope that some of y'all had the opportunity to check out what we've had on site as far as like the plans have showcased, and maybe seen us at Stanley Marketplace or Montbello Library when we've done some of these public information booths. And some of the feedback we got is shown here. Of course, not enough time. That's an ongoing battle. But also lack of facilities, not feeling comfortable or necessarily safe at Bluff Lake. The trail conditions needed to be improved. So accessibility was a big one. And that was for the ramp and the trails, the parking lot, and having like an additional entrance on the west side. And then thinking about the visitor experience, we need an indoor area. We need bathrooms that aren't porta potties, and water fountains for folks to be able to refill, having an on-site staff person so people can communicate concerns or just like get welcomed and get some information. Shade structures is a big one. We have a lot of sunshine here, and Bluff Lake gets a lot of it. So when we gathered all of that information and we got to work with our team, this is the master plan of the campus improvements. And most of this will be phased, but you can see here the community building that we're very excited about, the improved ramp and stairs, which was actually an element that was added to this project through the community engagement that we were able to do. And we heard in a really big way that this is something that really needs to be improved upon if people are going to be able to visit Bluff Lake and really access nature in a meaningful way. And then things like updating our amphitheater, creating an accessible creek overlook, an outdoor classroom. These are things that we want to be able to phase in once we have our first elements completed. And then, of course, the west entrance, which has been something that I know the Central Park community has voiced many a time, and we hope to be able to have that implemented with this project too. So these are some of the designs that our team has come up with. And of course, these are subject to change as we get into the nitty-gritty of it. But you can see here that we will have the public wing that will have classrooms, we'll have an administrative wing that will have our offices, a workshop for our site team to be able to do the work they need to do, a much more improved parking lot that has a substantial distance away from the programming, that will have like a natural, easy to understand and access entrance point to the ramp, which you can see on the left there. So we've completely redesigned this universally accessible ramp that will be much more accessible. We've really talked to a lot of folks who have represented groups who are using wheelchairs and using different devices, and say, like, have come to us and said, these are the improvements that you need to make. Here is some advice. And we were very excited to talk to them to really get an idea for even like the materials, like the slope, everything that goes beyond just ADA compliant, and really thinks about making this a welcoming space for all. These are some of the renderings that are a little bit more natural and show some of the ways that visitors will be accessing the site, using school buses coming through. That will be a lot easier. We have over 8,000 kids that come through every year with field trips, and making this a space for them is going to be incredibly important. This dives a little bit deeper into what we want to include in these buildings, thinking about, how we want to have a lobby, how we want to be able to utilize the space that are classrooms, but also that they'll be able to use for all kinds of different community events, especially when we think about the amazing nonprofits that we have in our community, and some of them would really like to be able to use Bluff Lake in different ways, and we'd love to be able to support them with programming in that capacity. So enabling to be able to have these facilities, I think, is going to be able to be wonderful. It's a really enjoyable site to be able to have an event at, especially if it's youth oriented and community oriented. So right now, we have gotten to the end of fall, and we've been working with our general contractor on the construction documents, and we're still in the public phase right now, fundraising, which has been really exciting to see just how many folks have been learning about Bluff Lake, learning about what we do. A lot of people don't know that we are a nonprofit that owns this site. A lot of people don't know that this is not like a public park. This is something that it was a part of the airport. It was the crash zone of the runway, but it's now owned and operated by Bluff Lake. So we do all of our fundraising, all of our programming. That's all through our organization. So we will continue to engage and inform the public throughout this whole process, but we will be aiming to break ground late summer after camp finishes. And then our goal is to be open late summer in 2025. So we'll only hoping to impact one summer of operations. I know a lot of folks are thinking about what camp is going to look like in 2025, and it will look considerably different. Definitely, this is the last year of having like camp as we know it. So if you are interested in camp, our registration will open in January. So please check the website for that. There is early registration for folks who donate any amount. So Colorado Gives Day is today. It's still a chance to make those donations. But anyone who donates in 2023 does get early registration. But we are excited about what this will mean for camp in the years to come. So our funding plan, our goal is 7.25 million. We're 5.5 million raised right now. This kind of shows a little bit of the breakdown. This is a very top-down approach. We've been extremely fortunate to have some amazing Keystone families that have stepped up and made considerable gifts and considerable commitments, as well as giving like their time and energy, resources and knowledge for projects like this. So we're incredibly grateful that we've had this support, and then a lot of foundational support too. People at a health foundation, they have been really wonderful, and it's been really exciting because a lot of these folks, like they've been newer to us, and they've learned about the projects that we've done, and it's been, I think, a real eye-opener for a lot of people who didn't necessarily know about all the programming that we do and all the programming we'll be able to do with this new building. So as you can see, we're at the point now where we're looking at the bottom part of that triangle there, and we're really looking at the community participation that we're going to be able to get to kind of bring us to this next level. So we'll be really looking for our community to be able to spread the word about this, to be able to learn about the project and support it in any way possible. And this is something that for folks who are interested in tax credits, this is a really big one. A lot of Colorado donors still are unaware about the child care tax credit, which is a considerable amount. I mean, it's 50%, and taken with all of the other deductions, it makes a really big difference. I understand not everybody works this on their taxes, but for the folks who do, this tends to be a real eye-opener. So you can see there what true cost really is to a donor. And of course, this can be at any level. This is just like the version that we have to show in this slide. So yeah, we have different ways that our community can help us, really sharing our mission, sharing what we do, making it known that we have all of these different elements of our site and programming that need support. We love our partners. We are a member of the Generation Wild Northeast Metro Coalition, and we do a lot of programming with all those wonderful organizations, and we're always excited when people bring new organizations that we can partner with, and then also telling other folks about us who can support us in whether that's financially or whether that's like connecting us with someone else or whether it's through a partnership, and then of course investing. This is something that really serves our community. And like I said, we don't get, tax money or anything like that because we own the site ourselves, which has been really interesting because we've managed to do a lot of really exciting things through, the independence. And we do love our partnership as well with Denver Parks and Rec. We do a lot of stuff with them as well. So we hope that our community will continue to learn about what we're doing, and I can answer any questions as well. I think I have Rachel on the call with me, but I'm happy to answer anything.
I know there were some questions in the chat. Does anyone have any other questions right now?
Oh, I see Rachel answered a bunch and she put
Yeah,
the link in.
she was very
Fantastic.
active in the chat.
Yes, please do visit the website. It's got a whole lot of information there. Like Rachel also mentioned, Colorado Gives Day is just got a few hours left if anyone is interested in supporting. But yeah, my email address is there. I am happy to, yeah, if anyone has any follow-up, please let me know. We're just really excited to be able to have the chance to engage more with this community and get to know folks, because we're a little bit siloed, not being on site all the time. So yeah, I'm just happy to virtually anyway see everyone's faces.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the presentation. Okay. Mark, can you get the slide deck back up? Okay. All right. Right now is the portion of the meeting when we kind of are open for community comments. I was contacted by David Kugler today. I don't know if he's in the meeting. I'm not seeing his name. But if David Kugler is on the call, I think he had wanted to speak. Otherwise, generally it's 2 minutes of if folks, we have just kind of a couple of minutes. I know we're over, but just in case anybody wanted to provide public comment, it's 2 minutes on a topic of your choice. There is a raised hand, it looks like. Who is that? Is that Doris? Or
It's Doris.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just like to say, guys, I'm on the sidewalk committee, the ordinance 307. And I think that is something that the CPUN will want to look at the next meeting because of its impact on Central Park, if it stands the way it is.
Would you be interested in providing kind of like a little more of a detailed briefing during one of our meetings, Doris? Because I know is that getting rolled out in July, or they'll start collecting the fees in July?
Right. And I would think before anybody starts collecting fees, as I said, I'm on that committee, that we would want to have some input into what that ordinance can cover and what it cannot cover, which will be submitted to the city council people.
Okay, and what, I guess, like, what are the opportunities for kind of public review and input then?
Well, you can write, and I need to, I'll get that information to you. You can write your city council person for sure. And also, there is a public input email address, which they really haven't published because they didn't want like droves of people emailing, but this is important to every community and certainly Central Park. If it stands as it is, every street, every sidewalk will be widened, whether it needs to be or not, to 5 feet. And so there's some other things that I don't think the communities would appreciate about that ordinance. And so just to give an update, maybe at some other time, I just want to put that in.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for raising that issue.
Welcome.
Okay. I know that we have our second guest speaker as Councilwoman Lewis. But just I know we're a little over, but we do have some buffer time also at the end. Could we actually take the 5-minute break right now? I don't know if is Councilwoman Lewis in the Zoom.
I don't see her, Liz.
Yeah, I know she was rushing back. They had the stay in community meeting with the mayor, and so I know she was rushing back from that. So if folks are okay, can we take that 5-minute break right now just to give her some time? And I'll check in and see if she'll, when she'll be joining. But I think if we take that 5-minute break right now, folks can stretch. We'll come back on and begin the second portion of the meeting. Does that sound okay to folks?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I'm going to turn off my video and mute, and I see at 7:31. I will be back at, folks can come back at 7:36, and we'll start from there. Okay, we are back, and I see that Councilwoman Lewis is actually just entered the Zoom meeting. Okay, great. So without further ado, we'll have an update from Councilwoman Lewis on the work she's been doing in the district, and then a Q&A about different policies and hot topics. So I will let you take it away, Councilwoman Lewis.
Hey, I'm so sorry. The link that was originally in in the calendar invite is not working. And so I am sending that link also to do you mind Liz displaying my PowerPoint?
Oh, you did send it. Hold on just a second.
Okay.
I'm usually not the one. Actually, Mark, if I send you this PowerPoint presentation, would you be able to put it, I guess, share it? I'll text that to you. Sorry, thanks.
It says I don't have
Liz,
access.
yeah, we don't have access.
Oh, you don't? Oh, okay. Hold on just a second. I literally have about 100 tabs open on my browser, so it's actually not loading. Hold on just a second. It's not my.
It looks like I can share screen if.
Yeah, if you can share your screen, Councilwoman.
Yeah, we gave you access, Chantal.
Okay.
Okay, great.
To get rid of myself. All right. How's that?
Looks good.
You can see it? Okay. Thank you all so much for your patience. Chantal Lewis here, Denver City Council recently elected, and wanted to provide the opportunity to talk about a few things that we have going on in the office, or things that we've been able to accomplish thus far. And so I'll go through these slides quickly, and then I'll open the floor up for a little bit of Q&A so that we can have some dialogue. So as I approach, and this is probably not new for you, for any of you, if you heard me debate during the campaign trail, while I was in the campaign trail, my approach to serving in office has certainly been the opportunity to co-create and co-govern with folks within my district. And so one of the first moves that we made as a council office was to go neighborhood by neighborhood and have these outreach and engagement opportunities. And what that looked like was to go into each of the neighborhoods, and we asked 3 simple questions: what's going well, what needs improvement, and what questions do you have? And from those discussions that we had in each one of those neighborhoods, we were able to figure out what were the themes across the districts, and use that to help us determine what the neighborhood priorities were. And so what we found is, while neighborhoods like Central Park or Park Hill may have had very different priorities, there was alignment across neighborhoods when it came to Park Hill, East Colfax, Central Park, and Montbello. And some of those themes that came up was around street safety and just general overall safety within our community, within our communities. We heard concerns around encampment issues, whether that was providing folks with the resources that they needed, such as trash or toilets, or even being able to have folks from our outreach teams go to those encampments to provide services. We heard a general conversation around housing affordability. And so not just like in terms of homelessness, but also in terms of in housing in general. So we would hear it in the context of rents being too expensive, but also property taxes, and seeing the increases in property taxes being an overall concern for folks. And so just general housing affordability. And then overall, what we heard pretty often across the board was community outreach efforts, that they felt as though that in terms of representation and folks who had previously been in government hadn't necessarily reached out proactively to communities to either have conversations or to just kind of gauge their interests and opinions on different things. And so with that, we were able to determine what our budget priorities were, because we jumped right in from essentially being inaugurated to being into our budget process. So that budget process consisted of a number of phases. The first was just to provide both macro and micro budget priorities for the city at large, but also for the districts that we wanted to be included in the mayor in a communication that city council would then provide to the mayor and his administration. And then to receive that back from the mayor. And then if we weren't successful in the things that we were hoping for as a council, that we had the opportunity as a council to run budget amendments. From that, we were able to successfully, oh great. So I did invite the mayor as well. So he just sent me a text and told me that he was on, but he's gonna have to wait for me to finish this presentation. So from those budget priorities, we were able to get rental assistance, Vision Zero, dollars for rental assistance, dollars for Vision Zero, dollars for basic income. We were able to secure dollars for social housing and a climate study, and then provide additional dollars for Denver Health Hospital, because we learned during the budgeting process that they were at a $100,000 debt, or $100 million deficit as a hospital, and wanted to make sure that they were successful in the long term. We were also able to pull out micro budget priorities. And really, this was just an opportunity from those meetings that we had in community to pull out what we heard from the communities and constituents. So what we heard pretty often is just general like safety and traffic calming measures and high injury networks, such as in East Colfax, Montbello, and even in Central Park. And then dollars specifically for Central Park to fund a study to identify improvements for the intersections of MLK and Central Park as well. And so that's essentially what we've been advocating for as a council office thus far, and where we really wanted to prioritize our time as a council office when it came to the budget priorities. I did want to take a moment to just kind of ground us in some of the things that you all can anticipate to either be completed within District 8 as it pertains to bond projects, or that you all can anticipate will be completed in terms of bond projects in District 8. And so you'll see the citywide Central Park Boulevard sustainability. You'll also see the conversations around citywide sidewalks with Smith Road and North Quebec Street, with the different phases there. And so I just want to, and I'm happy to provide this to you, Liz, or to Carol, and if you all want to make sure you have access to this side so you know what to expect in the months to come. As we've been working through, as we have been as a council office, we've had the opportunity to hear pretty extensively from constituents. And so what we've heard from constituents has paired with what we heard during the budgeting process, as well as the community meetings we've had, is how we've kind of outlined what our budget priorities are thus far. And those have come in the form of housing, transportation, and safety. I'll spend a little time on the housing because I know there are lots of folks who want to talk about that. But the way in which we've thought about housing is, how do we provide housing in the short, mid, and long term? And so in the short term, with the House 1000 plan specifically, we really tried to focus on how we build accountability within the contracts of our service providers. How do we partner with folks like the Give Back to be able to provide services for the folks that are staying both within the micro communities, micro units, and the shelters within District 8, as well as the opportunity to be able to collect data to ensure resident success. In the midterm, and we're at the direction that we're going, is really to move towards these performance-based contracts that have these metrics of accountability, but are also more get us closer to, I think, where we want to be in terms of success, to be able to measure like individual success and not necessarily just the referrals that we might have, that the referrals to different services that that as it stands currently. And then in the long term, our council office is really focused on social housing. So how do we go about bringing social housing as a way to not concentrate poverty, but also to have individuals and families from different from diverse incomes, backgrounds, languages, etc., living in the same housing units, and really or buildings, excuse me, and doing housing differently. What we've also heard in terms of our office priorities is transportation and climate coupled, right? Like from an infrastructure perspective, if that's traffic calming measures, if it's the electrification of I mean, a number of things. We can talk about solar panels, but we can also talk about like the electrification of our fleets. And then how do we use social housing in the context of climate change to be able to prepare for things like our changing workforce, or climate refugees that we might expect in the future. And then finally, what we heard was around safety, and not just safety in terms of like law enforcement, but like what are the pro-social opportunities or amenities that we might be able to provide throughout District 8 that can serve as safety mechanism? Like, could that be more lighting in our parks, or could that just be the existence of libraries and recreations in communities like East Colfax, in which they don't currently exist? And then finally, I wanted to end with this slide. Here's some of the work that we've done in the 142 days in which we've been in office thus far. So we've hosted or co-hosted over 20 community meetings. And this is not inclusive of the community events that we've gone to or that my staff have gone to. These are specific ones. We've asked for additional meetings for the zonings or the rezonings that are happening within District 8 beyond the requirements. We were instrumental in ensuring that there were encampment services for District 8 folks living unsheltered. And in fact, it was only the second site to have trash and toilets available to folks. We've been working in partnership and collaboration with many of you actually around migrant resources, and have held a number of resource drives at our District 8 office on the weekends to provide resources for our migrants, as well as ensuring that District 8 folks that are unsheltered in our community have access to housing. And so we've really been pushing to ensure that if we were going to have a number of these sites in District 8, that the folks that are currently living amongst our community had priority in terms of access to those sites. We've partnered with corporations to provide both our shelters and those living unsheltered with resources. Most recently, we were able to get a pretty large load of soaps for our shelters as a donation from these corporations that we've been able to work with. And we're also providing direct support for rental assistance for the folks within our communities to make sure that we can keep folks housed and taking those through those processes. We've worked with our elders in our senior living facilities, as well as within our senior living facilities, to improve the conditions and access to the amenities within the facilities that they are currently living in. And just today we learned that our 40th annual Hiawatha Davis Junior Senior Luncheon met the 600 member threshold that we were looking for attendees for our event this Friday, which we're really excited about. And we're still looking for volunteers. If anyone on this call is interested in volunteering at that event, we would love to have you. And we're distributing our weekly newsletter. So we have both a newsletter that will let you know what's happening in terms of council, but we also have a second newsletter that we're sending out to let you know, like, here's some cool things that you and your families can engage in on over the weekends as well. And then we've implemented and co-created budget priorities in partnership with community. I will just keep this slide up just for a bit because we'd love for you all to sign up for our weekly newsletter. We'd love for you to reach out to our council office. We're always accepting meetings to partner with folks and to just have general dialogue. And then finally, we are planning to have monthly community meetings in the start of the new year so that we can have that consistent communication with folks. And with that, I will open it up for questions, but also introduce the mayor as well, as he has so kindly joined me on this call in the event that you had questions for him or his administration. So thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Hey, y'all, happy to be on. Happy to answer any questions as well.
Great. Okay, so I think that for the process right now is that folks are you can raise your hand and then unmute with your question. Again, please keep it concise and germane to the topics and the kind of note I gave at the beginning of the meeting about engaging in civic discourse. So just remember that. I see we do have one raised hand right now. So someone whose name is D, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question. And thank you. I also just want to say thank you for joining us, Mayor Johnston.
You bet. Happy to be on. I'm right here in the neighborhood making my kids dinner anyway, so it seemed like the perfect time to join the call.
Let's say this is your neighborhood RNO, I believe.
It absolutely is.
So yeah, so I see D and James Holmes, if you're able to, we'll go in that order. And then I see Amy Campbell also has a question in the chat, but we'll start with D, James Holmes, Amy Campbell's question in the chat.
Hi, thank you so much for hearing my question, and thank you to the mayor and council for everything you're doing to address the housing crisis. Regarding that subject, I heard that there is a new shelter at the old Embassy Suite slated in Southeast Denver to be serving primarily women and children because maybe it was decided that it would be unsafe for children with so many single men being housed in our district. And I'm not sure if that's true, but like there is a lot of concern surrounding safety, particularly with camping and recent wildfires taking place. And obviously it's also there's so many issues with housing and safety going on right now. I have a couple questions regarding that. One, I know this is probably not a pipe dream, but since there are so many buses of migrant families coming in that aren't expected to stop anytime soon, and also since the baby boomer generation is expected to increase the number of seniors that are unhoused in the future, I'm wondering if it's possible that the concentration of hotel units might possibly be considered as an area specifically for those more vulnerable populations within the population of unhoused people, like seniors, families, women, whether they're migrants or existing citizens without housing. And then also, I was wondering if you might be able to speak to what wraparound services will exist at these properties and if they'll be 24/7. And then also, I heard another rumor, which also may be untrue, that you might consider sanctioning camping of some sort on these properties or near these properties. And I know some local residents are concerned that like what will happen if someone stays at one of these shelters and then decides to leave, or is kicked
The-
out? Are
the-
they
I
just
just
going to
wanna,
be?
I think
Yeah.
that like that's about 10 questions.
Okay.
So I just wanna
That was
make
it.
sure
Thank you.
that there's time for the
Yes.
answers, but I do appreciate you bringing this up. I think lots of folks who are on the Zoom meeting have similar questions. So I'll turn it over
Sure.
to Councilwoman Lewis and Mayor Johnston to respond, but thank you.
Great. Councilman, do you want me to start, or I'm
Yeah,
happy
you
to
can.
jump in, or
No, go ahead.
Great.
You start. I'll jump in.
Great. Thank you so much. The questions, a couple of items. One, you asked about wraparound services on the site and security, et cetera. Each of these sites do have round the clock security, so they have staffing 24 hours a day. They also all have mental health support, addiction treatment, workforce training. Those are all part of long-term housing navigation. That's all part of the suite of services. And actually, the move of families to the Embassy Suites was not at all about safety. It was actually community feedback that Councilwoman and I got from neighbors about the site that they were at up on Quebec, which is that site was not conducive at all to kids or families. It's right next to the truck stop there. There's no outdoor space, no good places for kids to play. The Embassy Suites does have actually much more of a yard and a play facility, and so it was an easier site for kids. And so that was part of the business leaders around that area had said that they actually were having quite good success with the Best Western population, and they felt like they weren't well equipped to serve children. So that was the reason for that push. It was not at all in any way related to security. So I think those are the top two questions that I wanted to jump in on right away, and then happy to give it to Councilwoman Lewis for any others that she might want to add.
Those were actually the two that I was going to answer. And I don't know if I caught the other ones. I do apologize.
I will say just for the sake of kind of getting to other folks' questions, Dee, if you want to send some of those questions by email, either to the district8@denvergov.org email address, or also reach out on centralparkunitedneighbors.com, our website, and either way, we will find some of those answers. And so
Thanks. Sorry, Liz, can I just jump in? She did put in the chat the one I wanted to respond to also, which is the unsanctioned camping. Is there unsanctioned camping at these sites? And no, there is definitely not. So that would be inaccurate rumor. The key is actually quite the opposite, as Councilman Lewis was saying. By bringing on these sites, it allows us to close the encampments where folks are currently living and move them into housing instead. And these sites all do have rules around these sites. So they're not walk-up services. You can't just walk in off the street and try to get access to services. They have doormen or doorwomen that gate access. You often can't bring visitors onto the site. So it is quite the opposite of what you would see as a congregate shelter site where folks are walking in and out all day long, or an encampment where folks are there without access to trash or bathrooms or privacy or shelter. And so quite the opposite, and appreciate that question.
And I will also say that one of the things that I've been working really closely with the mayor and his administration is to get folks housed from District 8. And I'm really excited that we are going to get over 100 folks housed in District 8 who are currently living unsheltered in District 8. And so very, very excited about that. And I think really addresses some of the concerns that folks have about folks living in our streets unsheltered without the resources that they need.
Thank you. Let's move to James Holmes.
Thank you, and thank you to the mayor and Councilwoman Lewis for all your hard work helping people and closing the urban camping, which is very good. My simple question is around, how are we, as we expect to have increased interactions along these lines, and there's like now resources for people, how are we supposed to like report, I guess, for lack of a better word, like any issues, like if we see people camping, if we see people panhandling in the off ramps of the highway, or soliciting work outside the Home Depot, or panhandling at restaurants, any of these like things that are signs of like people not getting the help that they need, how do we like deal with that? Like, as opposed to just ignoring it or something.
You bet. I'm happy to jump in. I'll let Councilwoman add. Fair question. The first thing is, obviously we do have, you'll see the overlapping intersection of multiple issues. Like for instance, when we look at the folks in the Home Depot parking lot, that is overwhelmingly migrants who are newcomers who've just come to the city and don't have work authorization, and so are trying to get access to that work authorization, sometimes on the black market. And so that is a separate question we're working on. Happy to address that. One of the things I just talked to the president about last week is expanding increased access to work authorization. So for those folks, so when they do arrive, they can get right to work, which is what they want to do, is the ability to work. So we are working on those additional issues separately. I will say we do have, and we are working on a more direct notification process for neighbors and businesses around places where we have new micro communities. And so if we do have challenges and folks are breaking the law or being disruptive or causing problems, we will have a process through 311 through which that can be reported, and through which you can specifically hashtag or identify the location on which you might have identified people. So we will have an expedited response there. I will say, all of the same rules and restrictions still apply. So it is not illegal right now for folks to be at the crosswalk or to be approaching folks for work. What we will be really focused on is any disruptive or illegal behavior. If people are harassing people, or people are stealing, or people are trespassing, that's obviously something we will enforce. And the benefit is we have not seen that currently from the sites that we've opened. As Councilman Lewis was saying, we see it more when folks don't have a place to go, don't have a room of their own, don't have their own bathroom, don't have their own electricity, don't have their own trash pickup. We see the manifestations of what happens when those services don't exist. The places where we have had these sites, we've seen crime actually decrease from the current baseline, and we will also gives us more officers time back to respond to calls and concerns, because right now a tremendous amount of officer time is going to responding to unsanctioned encampments. And so we both putting more officers on the street, but we also are triaging where they go to and freeing them up from the obligation to be responding to this high density of encampments. So we think that helps a lot on that front, but I'll give it over to Councilwoman to add anything she wants to add too.
Yeah, I would just add, I think one of the most, what we have seen to be most effective is the housing first model. It's getting folks in housing in order to be able to address some of those things. I mean, if you think about it, it's really difficult to go to health appointments, to have access to food, to even have access to a job if you don't have a stable place to lay your head, or if you worry that your things are going to be stolen when you're living in an encampment. When you go off to work. And so that the answer to that is like, we are really going to be pushing to make sure that we can get as many folks, either folks that are unsheltered or even our migrants into long-term stable housing, because we know that works. And it's the most effective model, is housing folks first and helping them to deal with the issues once they get housed.
Thank you. Quick follow-up. Sorry. What about trash in that area? There's a tremendous increase in trash over in the Quebec corridor. Is there any plans for that?
We are working on increased trash pickup around that entire corridor. We did a little volunteer cleaning on Saturday, but we will have increased visibility and work on that need. So we are aware of that, and we do have our team, which does Department of Transit and Infrastructure, and is also in charge of all the right-of-way and trash pickup, to be focused on that. We'll both do some volunteer activities there and some general, just tighter aligned street sweeping and street cleaning from the transit department. So yes, we are on that one.
Yeah, and just really quickly, James, I know that for some, if you're talking about just kind of like litter around there that's not necessarily associated with an encampment, you can always put in an illegal dumping case with 311 or kind of like the pocket gov and solid waste management. And then I know the council office, if it needs to be escalated, the council office can escalate it, but it starts with the 311 case. I wanted to go to, there's a few questions in the chat. Amy Campbell is the first person, and then I actually missed a question from Trisha Houston up thread, but we'll start with Amy. Amy, do you want to read that or shall I just read that?
Yeah, I can just reiterate. I was
Okay, thank you.
wondering how, if the District 8 office or the mayor has thought about how the Vision Zero priorities for the city intersect with all of the new housing that's coming along Quebec, because I believe Quebec is a part of the high injury network. And I'm assuming that a lot of these people who are going to be housed will not have access to cars. They'll be using their feet, they'll be using their bikes, they'll be using RTD to get around. So I was wondering if there's been any thinking around that and if there will be any improvements to like pedestrian or bicycle safety in that part of District 8.
Thanks for the great question. I'll jump in quickly, which is a couple things. One of the reasons why these sites are good opportunities for people is because they do have such good access to public transit. So the proximity of the light rail and of bus routes along MLK and others are a real benefit for this district and for this region. We are also adding what we call circulators, which are small buses that help run routes to these sites to frequently traveled locations. So if you need to get to the hospital to see a doctor, you need to get to a service provider to get benefits, you need to be able to get to a grocery store or others. We do a circulator site that will run through these that also helps. We are always looking at ways to increase. Obviously, we're in an entire deep dive now on Vision Zero and how we can make that more effective across the city. So where we need to slow traffic, provide walkways, provide better bike lanes. And so we're always reevaluating those, but we think this offers, with the circulator and the current public transit options, and also a lot of good work options right within walking distance. That also was a attractive factor for us. That's stage one, but we are doing a deep dive around the city on improvements around Vision Zero and as part of a longer term plan.
Yeah. And I would just add, as part of one of the budget priorities was the Vision Zero. And I won't pull the slide back up, but I will say that as a part of the bond projects that that I had mentioned earlier, pedestrian improvements along Quebec at I-70, at the I-70 crossing was a part of that as well. And it's currently in the design phase, excuse me. And so you all should stay tuned. But again, I'm happy to send that slide out to you all so you're aware of it.
Thank you. And I think Trisha, well, I know you have a cold, so I don't know if you want to unmute and read your question also, or we can read it.
Yeah, I can try.
Great.
Sorry. So I was trying to ask, we've been raising money for Ashley Elementary because of the influx of the students that they've had there. So they've almost doubled their size that they started out with 2 months ago. So what is the coordination between DPS and the refugees that are coming in? We've met with the staff over there and they're saying they're getting minimal effort from DPS in terms of helping them, and they're severely short-staffed. So I'm just wondering what the coordination effort is between the city and DPS to make sure that these schools aren't completely wiped out.
So this is one we are working on directly. A few things. One is we're working on when families arrive, we directly do registration and intake for DPS at the sites. We can help connect them to services and make sure that they have the supports they need. The second is we are partnering with the district and with principals around more deliberate patterns for where folks are going to arrive and how we help balance enrollment in distant schools that have capacity and that can provide the right kinds of services. If they have good Spanish language immersion programs, if they have good ESL programming, if they have some sites like in Globeville have brought on entire new classrooms to serve newcomer families who are all going to have the same language needs. And then the final one is because many families will arrive and say, you may know that our sites for migrants are short term. They're either 14 days for individuals or 35 days right now, 37 days for families. What often can happen is you might be at a hotel site for 20 days and then you get an apartment across town, but your kids have already enrolled in a school on the east side, but now you're living on the west side. And so we are also working with the district on providing busing access so that you can maintain stability for those school placements around that long term. And the benefit is the school, because I spent a lot of time as a school principal and on the School Finance Act, schools are very different than than the city, which is they get funding for students regardless of where they come from or how they're structured out of the School Finance Act. That's not a kind of unfunded mandate for the school district the way it may be for the city. So every one of those students that arrives in DPS usually brings $10,000 of revenue from the state to backfill those services. And so they do have the resources to help support these kids. We're just trying to make sure that they're getting them. And huge debt of gratitude. I know you and many other Central Park families have engaged tremendously in supporting these families and kids in schools. And so thank you so much for doing that. I think you've made a huge difference so far.
Yeah, and I second that. You all have been amazing in terms of your support. Now, I will just add that from a council lens, it's the school city coordinating committee, which was just recently passed out of council, and it's our commitment to working in partnership with DPS to figure some of these things out. I will say intentionally that the conversations that I've had thus far, and one of the sites that will be coming online in District 8 for our migrants specifically is actually near Ashley Elementary. And what I've asked directly is, can we make sure that the families that are currently in the families of the students that currently attend Ashley Elementary are prioritized for that housing? And so I'm certainly thinking about it, and it's certainly a part of the conversations that I'm having with the mayor and his administration as well.
So one of the feedback that we got from the principal over there is that many of the students are really behind and are special ed, but they are having a really hard time fast tracking their identification. And so there needs to be an expeditious process to get them so they can get them the services, because right now many of them are actually not nonverbal, and they can't do anything because they haven't been identified. And so she's saying that they're struggling with getting a fast track to get some of these kids identified. And I'm sure that's with all the schools that these kids are landing at.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chantel.
No, go.
That's a great point. And I was going to say, you may know that Chantel and other members of the council pushed forward this reactivation of a city school district coordinating committee to just accelerate communication on issues like this, because we did not have open communication between the school board and the city council, between the superintendent and myself. And we want to be much more involved in issues like this. And so that's when I meet regularly with them. That's when we can take to them. I was a former special ed teacher, did intake and assessment for initial evaluations. And this should be a place where you should be able to surge special ed capacity from other parts of the district to come to places where we have new arrivals, because those IEPs are on regular calendars and they probably already have the other ones moving. So I'll be happy to follow up with the superintendent and push that ask to them, because that seems like a totally reasonable request.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. That's what she said her biggest need is right now.
At Ashley?
Yeah, I'm sure it's all the schools, but she specifically said that that's the thing that they're hurting with the most.
I'm really glad. I had not heard that one yet, so I will reach out on that one tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
And I know Councilman Lewis and Mayor Johnston, Trish is the one that's been spearheading the GoFundMe, and we're about $7,500 towards the $9,000 goal. So that will give a nice gift to all those families at that school.
Beautiful. Well done, Trish.
That's amazing.
I have 2 follow-up questions from the chat. Can I read those right now?
Please.
They should be quick. Okay. So I thought newly enrolled DPS families who arrive at school mid-year do not come with that 10,000 funding. Do you guys know? Oh, nobody's here from DPS. Can anyone answer that?
Yeah, I can. I spent a lot of time on student count days. And so technically that's true. There's not.
Oh dear. I'm just going to say the other question really fast while we wait for the mayor to come back. And the other one is, how long is a person oh shoot, I just lost it. Categorized as a migrant. Oh, here we go. How long are migrants considered as such before they are considered unhoused and moved to that designation? Perhaps Councilwoman Lewis, you could answer that one.
What's the question?
How long are migrants considered migrants before they are considered unhoused?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
Well, because we have 2 different populations of people with needs. The migrants coming in have needs, but then if they are unhoused I think that many people would still consider them migrants at a certain point, just in terms of the immigration process. When is there a line when they would no longer be designated migrants?
I have no idea. I mean, like someone experiencing homelessness is someone experiencing homelessness. Their status is in this country for me is kind of irrelevant, to be completely honest with you, Amanda, or whoever asked this question. If someone is experiencing homelessness, I think we have a responsibility as a city to figure out how we get folks housed. And so like the work that we're doing in terms of being able to keep folks, to keep folks, not just folks who are migrants, but folks who are currently in our city, who live in residences. The plan is to keep them housed for as long as we possibly can. That's why we had this keen focus on providing rental assistance and ensuring that we had those dollars to be able to cover that for 2024. And so I don't make that distinction like that they are migrants until they are no longer in a migrant shelter and then they're unsheltered. Folks who are unsheltered are unsheltered. And I think we have a responsibility to make sure that we are taking care of them.
Okay, thanks. Those felt like the 2 follow-up questions to the Ashley discussion. No, I'll toss it back to Liz.
And actually, I have a follow-up comment. I guess on that question is that the question assumes that it's a binary and that being a migrant and being unsheltered are mutually exclusive statuses. But I think that from what I understand, what the councilwoman is saying is that they are intersecting statuses. And so the needs of somebody who both has immigration needs and who is unhoused, like that is like a compounded situation. But one status does not exclude the other. Does that make sense? Anyway, I hope it does for the person who asked the question. I don't know if the mayor has rejoined, but I did want to just point out it's 8:19 right now, and we actually do have we have some other items on the agenda for tonight. So I just wanted to make the offer. I know there's several questions in the chat. We're actually going to get a transcript of this chat after the meeting is over. Oh, I think Mayor Johnston has rejoined. But
sorry.
What I would offer to folks is actually, if you can, all the questions that are currently in the chat, we will be kind of taking all of them out of the transcript and then following up with both Councilwoman Lewis and Mayor Johnston. And actually, I saw a couple of questions related to kind of the area restriction for the gentleman who's been starting fires in Westerly Creek. And I think that's a DPD. I think that might be a DPD question. So we'll get your questions to the correct agencies for the folks who can answer them. And if folks have additional questions, please put them in the chat. I do think that it's 8:20 right now. Our meeting only goes to 8:30 and we have some board items that we need to discuss. So I want to thank Mayor Johnston and Councilwoman Lewis for taking the time. I know this was after a full day of work and then the community meeting and then this. So I deeply, deeply appreciate your time and your willingness to answer the questions. And we will be diligently following up on the questions that are in the chat. So please get them in and we will get the responses out. If folks can also leave their contact information with their questions so that we can get back to you directly with those, in addition to just kind of providing responses to the community in our update on this. I think that's probably the best way to proceed at this time.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
And Liz,
Oh,
I
go
think,
ahead.
I'm sorry, Councilman Lewis, I was just
Go
going to
ahead.
say, we should let you and the mayor have any parting comments too.
Oh yeah, thank you.
It's always just a thank you. I really always appreciate the opportunity to come chat with you all. My council office will provide regular updates to you all, either myself or Jessica Carey, who is on my staff, who will be working in partnership with you. And so thank you all for the opportunity to come and chat and for spending an evening with us. And I'm sure you all had long days. And so thanks for dedicating your time to this. It's very, very helpful.
Yeah, I'll just say the same thing. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for the spirit with which you all engage, which is here, tough issues, how can we all work together to solve them? And I'll just say you all are incredibly lucky to have Councilwoman Lewis. I think she's established herself as a major leader in the city in a very short amount of time on this issue and many others. And I think is thoughtful, is clear, is courageous. And so you are in very good shape. I'm lucky as a neighbor to have her as my councilwoman, and look forward to being back anytime you all want to have me. And I will go now see if I can manage to get dinner on the table and people showered into bed before the end of the night, like the rest of us.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much. We'll turn you loose, and then Mark, if you can share the slide deck just for the final items. And for everybody, I also want to recognize that, you know, at different points in this meeting, we had 71 folks on the Zoom, and we do not typically have that many people at our monthly meetings. So I just want to acknowledge, like, how engaged folks are on these issues. I really appreciate you showing up. I think that as the CPUN board, I think as we look at our 2024 monthly meetings, I know we want to do some follow-up there. I think there's so many important topics that have come up in this meeting. So please do keep paying attention, stay involved. You're welcome to stay on for the rest of this meeting as well. But I just want to thank everybody for your participation and attendance before we move on to the final items in this meeting. So thank you. And we hope you keep coming and participating and just being involved in our neighborhood, in our community. So thank you. Okay. Mark, can you, I can also, I think I know what the final slides are. If you want to share the screen, you can. Otherwise, just for, yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so just our board items. Brian Penny, if you can give us your treasurer's report, and then I think that will move us, that'll like, yeah, move us into the topic of the fundraising committee updates from Mark. So Brian, you can start.
Yeah, so after we have spent some of our reserves on the new website design and hosting service, the approximate $2,800. And so Mark and Mandel are working on that. Leaves our reserve at just under $8,000. Just so everybody knows, aside from the food, the DEI event was fully funded by donations. So it was basically money coming in and money going out. So that's my update, Liz.
All right, thank you. So I do think that we do need to we need to do some brainstorming around fundraising opportunities in order to make sure that our balance reserve balance stays healthy. So Mark, if you wanted to talk about some upcoming fundraising opportunities.
Happy to do so. The main thing I wanted to bring up is scheduling a Chipotle fundraiser. We haven't had one of those in a while. We can do 2 a year. It looks like the next date that's available, though, isn't until early March. So I don't know if anybody has any specific requests or anything like that about or dates in March, but otherwise I will pick probably a Tuesday or Wednesday and get that on the schedule. But if anybody has any requests, I'm open to hear them. I would probably going to avoid spring break at the end of the month and go with something earlier than that. But any comments on that?
I think if it's booked out that far, we should go ahead and get the date in early March, as long as it doesn't conflict with DPS spring break. That wouldn't be ideal.
I agree.
Great. The other point is if anybody wants to help with fundraising, we're actually scheduled to have a lunch this Friday. I'll need to do that from 11:30 to 12:30. So if anybody is available for to join, just let me know. Send me an email at maringer@gmail.com. Everyone on the board has that email and can just reply to something from before. But we have actually a growing group of people who have been joining in that. Part of the plan is to try to do the mini golf tournament again in May, and we'll start, we've started sort of talking about that and other possibilities. But we'll have a discussion about that then. But the first thing I wanted to do was just get that Chipotle event on the calendar. And the last item I would add is if you have any friends who own a business who may or may not want to become a sponsor, or if you know anybody who just loves what we do and wants to become a sponsor and just have a little spot in our emails, that's always an option as well. And I'm happy to coordinate with with them.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. I think, do we include that information in our community emails also on opportunities for sponsorship?
No, because our emails are already pretty long.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we can do, like, if we can get like a quick little blurb and just, you know, to contact you just to like periodically. So maybe in the next, we'll see how long it is, but maybe in the next, or, you know, the early 2024 community updates, that might be a good place to put that out there.
Sure. I mean, we have in the past.
Yeah.
I don't think anything came of it, but happy to do it again once a year or something like that. That's fine.
Great. And if there's no other questions, we've got 2 minutes left. I think we can do it. I just wanted to give a quick, just a quick look ahead. So our next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, January 16th, again from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. This one will be hybrid. So it'll be in person at the Cube, which I believe is 8371 Northfield Boulevard. And you know, as much as possible, it would be great to just be able to connect with folks in person. I know that there are many reasons why it's good to also have the Zoom option, but just wanted to put that out there and hope to see folks at the Cube on Tuesday, January 16th. Our guest speaker for that will be Clerk Lopez, the Office of the Clerk and Recorder, to kind of give us an update and presentation on the 2024 elections. There's a lot coming up in 2024, so I appreciate that he reached out and wants to speak with the community on that and the work that they're doing out of his office around that. And then I think Mark, we can talk about it on offline, but the community survey results, it would be also great to be able to have a portion of the January meeting to talk about the community survey results, since that can kind of shape some of the work that we do as a neighborhood organization over the next year. So with that, are there any other questions or comments or discussion for folks on the board on any of those topics or anything that came up? Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'll just it seems like we're good. We'll get all of these questions pulled out and start getting answers for folks. Again, thank you for everybody who joined this meeting. Thank you, CPUN board, also for the coordination around this meeting, and also for the GoFundMe for Ashley. So I'll just wish everyone just happy and restful holidays, and we will see you in the new year.
Thanks, Liz.
All right. Thank you all.